All right, let's welcome back to the podcast the foremost draft expert on the planet. I mean, I don't know if I'm overhyping him, but he comes on every year. He's great. Daniel Jeremiah, hoops enthusiast, Chargers announcer. How are you, man?
I'm doing great, buddy. It's great to see you. You do not age, and your energy doesn't dissipate. It does look like maybe you have some unpacking to do behind you, but
Yeah,
other
there's
than
some Girl
that, you're
Scout
in a good
cookies.
spot.
I'm going to be shipping you some Girl Scout cookies,
Oh,
fatten you up,
nice, nice,
get
nice.
you ready for the combine. So listen, this is draft season. Super Bowl's over. My guess is that DJ, I know you were at Senior Bowl and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go ahead and guess that a lot of people are going to say, "Did you see the Super Bowl? The Eagles' defensive line," and we're going to hear a lot of cases for defensive pass rushers pushing up in the draft. Abdul Carter going one. Your thoughts on the Super Bowl and how it could impact the draft?
Well, I think it marries up well, and we're going to hit it as a theme at the combine on our coverage because I've already wrote it down. I finished watching the D line last night, so I'm done with the defensive lineman. It is a stacked class. So you have the recent example of what a dominant defensive front looks like, and then you have a draft class that's going to offer a multitude of defensive linemen. So I wrote down on my sheet. I just wrote down VET and I threw an S on there just to make it easy. So I just wrote vets. Like that's going to be the theme of this draft. I'm talking about violent, explosive, twitchy defensive linemen. Like that's what it is. And that's what you saw on display in the Super Bowl with the Eagles. And J-Mac, it wasn't like their front four. It was eight of them that they're just rolling through. I mean, it's not just having three or four guys. It's having, another wave of guys you can throw in there that do the same thing.
And this is kind of the Niners model, right? Didn't they run that with
Yeah,
Salah and then they just ran out of
100%.
gas? Remember the Tyreek Hill Super Bowl? We caught that 58 yarder on third and a mile.
So I coming into the Super Bowl, there's a couple things I thought would happen. Number one, I thought the Chiefs would come out and use tempo. Now, part of the problem why they couldn't do that is because they couldn't get a first down. When you can't get a first down, you can't keep drives alive. It's hard to go with tempo. But I thought they would try and wear those guys out that way. And I'll go to my grave believing 1000% if they play on a normal surface in that previous Super Bowl meeting between the Eagles and the Chiefs, where they weren't playing on an ice rink and the Eagles pass rushers weren't slipping and sliding all over the field, I think they would have beat them in that game as well.
Ooh, that's a spicy take. So you're the guy who had Abdul Carter number one in the draft,
Yeah.
and obviously he was dominant against Notre Dame, dominant all season, great career. DJ, listen, you're my guy. I'm not calling you out. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like, how on earth do the Titans not go Cam Ward or Shedeur, whoever they prefer, at one? Like, what is the argument? I mean, Brian Callahan could get run
Yeah.
off if he trots out Levis again, or whoever rent a quarterback, Kirk Cousins, whatever you want to do. He might not make it to season three.
Yeah, and that's the challenge. The interesting thing is you have a general manager in year one. So these decisions tend to get made by general managers, and general managers that have a runway know that they're more than likely get one crack at a quarterback. And do you want this to be your guy, or do you want to try and build up? I go back to the old Seattle, way of doing business. So we're going to build up the roster and we're just going to drop the quarterback in so that we can have success with a young, cheap quarterback. I don't think their roster where it is now is good enough to uplift a young quarterback that might need some support and some help. And I don't know that, if you look at the upside of this quarterback class, if it's quite as enticing as what could be coming down the line in the next couple years. That being said, I wouldn't be shocked if they took a quarterback. I'm not sitting here saying they 1000% are going to take Abdul Carter or they're going to take a
Right.
non-quarterback. But when your president gets elevated into that role and some of the first words that come out of his mouth that we're not going to pass on a generational type player, I didn't feel to me like he was discussing one of these two quarterbacks.
Damn. Now I've heard generational tossed around for Travis
I
Hunter.
hate that. I hate
I
that
disagree
phrase, by the
totally.
way.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It is goofy. You had Travis Hunter in your mock, and again, this is a mock. What,
Yeah.
3 months out? It's early. Going to also the Browns passing on a quarterback again. I mean, again, I don't see how they wouldn't want to instantly get either Cam or Shador and say we're done with Watson. It's over. Don't care about the dead cap money. He ain't coming back. We don't want him. He's toxic in the building, and they just move on. Isn't that easier than going Travis Hunter?
Yeah, my logic on that one was there's been a lot of dot connecting, and with Kevin Stefanski and his previous relationship with Kirk Cousins, and the fact that Kirk Cousins, if we know one thing about the Browns, right? The money they have tied up in Deshaun Watson, they're not spending big money in free agency on a quarterback. Their quarterback's going to come in the draft. or it's going to come via a very cheap veteran. And they have a situation similar to Russell Wilson last year where the Atlanta Falcons are fitting the bill. You could bring in a Kirk Cousins. You could pay him next to nothing, because it's all going to be offset. He's going to make all his money from the Falcons. So you could pay Kirk Cousins $1 million, and have him slide right in. And now what that frees you up with that top pick to be able to go get, a difference maker. Now, this was a team, people forget, was a playoff team, with Flacco the year before. And
Yeah,
there
yeah.
could be some thought there of, hey, like we get Kirk Cousins in here another year removed from that Achilles and an offense he knows and can navigate and can be functional. And we get to use this top pick on another player. I think there's, when you do these mock drafts, I'm always just thinking of different
Yeah.
scenarios and taking little bits of information. And that was one of the avenues, at least I could see them going down.
Okay. I like that. But for Tennessee, you made it sound like the GM was running the show. And then for Cleveland, a little more Stefanski. I'm just curious, what does that mean for the Browns front office? Or is this nothing, you're just speculating some?
No, I mean, I think you would. I don't see there would be a difference between
Mm,
Stefanski and what they would have with Andrew Berry there. I think they would be, in lockstep on that, and that they're kind of in a rock and a hard place, and that they need a quarterback, and they need one either to come cheaply via the draft or via a veteran. So I could 100% see them taking a guy there. There's, the rumors, the little the whispers around NFL circles when you're talking to friends is like it's not hard to draw the line between the Haslam family, the University of Tennessee, Peyton Manning, Arch Manning. Like that would be his, white whale, like his golden goose, his, dream
mm,
of all dreams would be to have Arch Manning as the quarterback
yeah.
of his team down the line. And maybe, that's why that was a theory, right? That was floated around. But then when they've pushed back and said they wouldn't try and figure out a way to move Myles Garrett, I thought, well, then that can't have
Kind of
legs.
crushes that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is interesting. I like how you frame whispers. So,
It's
Super
the
Bowl
fun
week.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the most fun stuff. That's
Yeah.
what the audience cares about. Super Bowl week, I was at a party and I heard from two people, hey, man, keep an eye on Stafford to the Giants.
Hmm.
And I'm like, how? And then they start to break it down. And then they started explaining, yeah, Les Snead's right over there. And a certain agent for Matt Stafford, he's also coming later. Okay. I'm just curious, where are you on the Giants, their quarterback situation, and then this Matt Stafford scuttlebutt?
Yeah. I mean, I posted about it this morning just because I'm hearing the same thing everybody else is hearing. Like that's one of those things that's just floating around from a lot of different angles and a lot of different places of this seems like a real, possibility. And again, it's rumor season, it's whisper season.
Yes.
And this is the kind of stuff that could be a game of telephone and who knows, but it's coming from a lot of different places. And to the point where I was like, well, I'd be curious about this. And now Giants fans lost their mind. They kind of misinterpreted a little bit of a tweet that I had where I
Shocker.
said, yeah, I just said that I'd be curious to see what the compensation would look like in a Matthew Stafford to the Giants trade. And assuming that the Giants could hold on to the third overall pick,
Certainly.
they would have a lot of options, meaning they could take an impact player. Maybe Abdul Carter is there for them. I mean, they have already a dominant defensive line. I don't even know, how they would fit all these pieces in there. Or you could take a Travis Hunter, or you could trade back and recoup some of the picks or whatever you'd have to give up to get Stafford. And then that was immediately interpreted as like, you think they would, the third pick that they would trade that for old quarterback and Matthew Stafford. I'm like, no,
No.
that's where the curiosity is
Mhm.
they have that pick. What would they then do with that pick if they had the Matthew Stafford trade?
The other spicy thing I heard Super Bowl week, not totally related to the draft, but Brock Purdy and the Niners, if Brock Purdy holds firm with this, I want 55 plus million, I want Dak Prescott money, do the Niners say, hey, man, sorry, but we look around, we see Sam Darnold out here. I see Aaron Rodgers out here, a Bay Area guy. Like, we got options. We're not doing that, Brock. Anything on the Niners?
I would be 100% like shocked on a shocked meter of 0 to 100. 100 if Brock Purdy does not get a deal done and is not the quarterback of the Niners. They love him. He fits them. It's proof of concept. You can have the Brock Purdy debate can take place on podcasts and shows that we're all on. You can have that. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what he is for the other 31 teams. He fits that specific team extremely well. There's proof of concept coming within a hair of winning a championship. So it makes too much sense for them not to take care of him, to pay him a number that will make other teams and pundits uncomfortable, and they shouldn't care because it's the right guy for their system and what what they do.
You know more about team building than a lot of the NFL analysts out there because you worked in front offices. DJ, I gotta ask, if you saw what the Cowboys happened when they paid Dak, like, isn't the same going to apply to Brock Purdy? Maybe not immediately, because I do believe he has 1 year left on his deal. Like, they're going to have to get off at least 3 starters, I would guess, minimum 3 starters.
Yeah, but the other thing I would say that is they have some age on the defensive side of the ball that was going to naturally age out anyways. So you have some expensive players that are getting older, and that's going to naturally kind of take care of itself. But that still, make no mistake about it. Yeah, it's important that you draft well and you continue to, surround him with the right pieces. But the thing that's different with the Cowboys, I would say, is, I mean, they've got stability in San Francisco. It is Kyle Shanahan, it is John Lynch, and when you have that, you have the system that stays the same. You're not constantly changing schemes, so now you need different skill sets on defense. So that can mess with your hit rate in the draft. Like, they know exactly who they are and what they are, and you look at the Dallas Cowboys. That's been a little bit more in flux.
Bigger shock for you, Luka Doncic getting traded or Brian Schottenheimer getting the head coaching job? You can be honest. Brian Schottenheimer's the new Cowboys head coach.
It was the Cowboys. It was the Cowboys. So I was definitely more surprised that Luka Doncic got traded.
I know, but still,
I was in the airport, by the way. I was in the airport, and it was right after the Senior Bowl game. I think it was a Sunday, right? When that went down? Yeah. Or Saturday night. But I had gone to bed on the East Coast, so I woke up and I was at the airport. And it was like, and a lot of it was NFL people who were leaving the Senior Bowl. And it was like these little huddles everywhere. And if you went to go get coffee, Luka Doncic, give Anthony Davis. Like, it was literally the talk. It's not normal that the NBA dominates a circle of NFL folks, but that was shock value.
All right, back to the draft. Cam, Shedeur, 1-2 at quarterbacks, whichever you want to order. But number 3 seems to be up in the air. Now, DJ, I like to play the game where when everybody's talking about Jackson Dart, I wonder what happened to Jalen Milroe, who checks all the boxes behind the scenes. I know he didn't show up great in a couple games. And Quinn Ewers' name just magically not getting mentioned anywhere. I'm always suspicious when quarterbacks who all season we talked about suddenly are getting no juice. Is that by design? Tell me what you're hearing.
Well, I do think the Dart stuff was real. There are teams that like him, and I think I've made the claim on Dart of I can draw the line to Jalen Hurts with Dart. Everybody's doing it with Milroe.
Huh.
I can do it with Dart just from this standpoint. You got guys with similar build, right? Similar, frame, sturdy, strong guys who are smart, guys who got better every year in college, like Hurts every step along the way from Alabama to Oklahoma. Was he ever at an elite level? No, but he was getting better every single year. They can both rely on their legs a little bit while they're developing as passers, so that gets them on the field when they're younger and they're not a finished product yet. Jackson Dart, I think, had over 1,400 rushing yards in the SEC. He's a really good athlete. So you've got all the makeup and intangible stuff is very, very similar. So I can see how, you're buying into the future here. It's like a stock and you're buying it, hoping it's going to pay off, down the line here because of the ingredients being there. So that's where the Jackson Dart thing comes. Now, with Milroe, there's some people who are using Hurts. Okay, this is going to help him. But there's another faction of people in the league you talk to that are like, well, look at Anthony Richardson. We had this unbelievable, explosive, dynamic athlete, and he's not good enough as a passer, and it's not working. Yeah. So that's the balance between Milroe, and you have people that are strongly in the Milroe camp, and then people that aren't. And the name that I'm looking forward to going back through and going through all of his tape is Ewers, because I watched him over the summer and I liked him. I liked him a lot. I thought he would be a first-round pick. I thought he was trending. I know it wasn't perfect, but he had a lot of twitch in his movement. I thought the ball jumped out of his hands. I liked the way he threw the ball. There were some things to clean up, but I thought, okay, if he just takes the next step, we'll be talking about him as a first-round pick. Now, very uneven performance this year. And the stuff that I've heard, not only from Texas, but, kind of going through this pre-draft, training process was this dude was pretty hurt. He was, I think he had an oblique was out there. I think he might have even had an ankle or something else. But I'm curious once we get to the combine and you start hearing, the background and the information and the medical stuff, if we don't realize this guy was kind of a wounded animal out there this last year. And if that is the case, if that gets confirmed, and he throws the ball really well and has, good interviews and things. I think you could see him make a late push.
Yeah, it feels like he definitely was looking over his shoulder, right? Thinking about the NFL. And then, hey, man, I got to play through these injuries, or guess what?
You ain't getting the job
Arch
back. The other guy
Manning,
gets out there.
yeah, then I'm totally screwed.
Yeah.
Who's the, quarterback wise, the other guy I have on my list. Give me your floor and ceiling in the draft for Riley Leonard, Notre Dame, who looked really promising at Duke. And I don't know if it was the offense, but go ahead.
He is a great athlete.
Yes.
And like, if you want to have some fun, like as much fun as you had watching Cooper DeJean's basketball highlights, go watch Riley Leonard's basketball highlights.
Nasty.
Like he can jump out of the gym. Like he's a real athlete, super tough, super competitive. Just started out really had a rough one, early in the season at Notre Dame. And I think that was that first image is like everybody's eyes were on him. And it was like, oh gosh, that was, he's struggling. Bless you. And he got towards, the end of the season, they got a little bit better. In that last game, they just ran him. They ran him into the ground, and he kind of physically, you could tell he was hurting a little bit. But he's a project. He's, I actually looked at him and I was like, man, I hate it when you say, oh, this guy can't play quarterback. He needs to play another position. But after seeing his basketball highlights and seeing how tough he is and how he runs, I'm like, geez, I kind of wouldn't mind seeing him play some safety. Like he looks like he could get back there and do it. But I mean, again, don't give up on your dreams, chase the quarterback thing, and we'll see what opportunities he gets. But that's the level of toughness and competitiveness and athleticism he has.
Yeah. Did you watch Scooby-Doo as a kid, where they would like capture the bad guy and they would pull the mask off and it would reveal? Oh my gosh! So for Jackson Dart, I pull the mask off and I can't unsee Matt Corral, who put up massive numbers in a Lane Kiffin system, was drafted, and then just kind of hasn't done anything. And same thing with Riley Leonard. Like you pull the mask off and it's like, is that Daniel Jones? Are you vibing that or not really?
No, it's interesting. Those are some interesting comps. I was asked, there was a comp the other day that I had. Scadaboo, the running back from Arizona State.
Oh man, I like him.
I was asked about him, and they said, "What's your comp?" I was talking to somebody in the league, and I said, "My comp for him would be James Conner if you left him in the dryer too long."
Oh. That's not.
So
I thought you were going to say Mike Olstein.
I thought I was the one with all the weird comps, but I think the Scooby Doo thing. I think you can take it to I think you can take the title there. But no, look, that's going to be those are going to be questions that need to be answered. I like Dart better coming out than Corral. I think they're built differently.
Yeah.
And I think from a makeup standpoint, I think Dart's just from talking to people at Ole Miss, I think is on another level from that regard as well.
The other name, one of these quarterback gurus came on the herd, and during commercial breaks we're talking, and this guy is hyping the daylights out of Kyle McCord, the former Ohio State guy who went to Syracuse. What are you hearing anything like second round? It seems a little rich, no?
I've done a little on him. I'm finishing up the quarterbacks. You can see my this is how organized I am when I'm watching tape here. It's like like my to-do list to finish up
YouTube audience will love
before
that.
Before we get to the combine. So I'll get the quarterbacks cleaned up early next week. But I have seen a little bit on him, and I was intrigued because he's got a live arm. And ball does jump out of his hands. Now, I was talking to a scout, and I just watched like 2 games. I was like, hey, what's your take on McCord? He's like, well, unfortunately, I was at the game. He threw 5 picks against, I think it was Pitt, maybe. And so I'm like, well, that's not great, but there's a lot of tools there, a lot of traits there. And I would, Will Howard's another one, Will Howard's 6'4", he's 240 pounds. He just came off of a national championship where he got pretty hot. I think he can move around a little bit. I want to see him throw in person. I've never seen him throw live. My question is just, does the ball jump out of his hand? Does he have enough from that standpoint? But that's another one, at least you hear.
All right, 2 quick ones to wrap up. Will the Jets go with Tyler Warren from Penn State? Maybe my favorite player in the draft. I don't know if he'll go that high. Definitely feels like the Colts are probably his floor.
I love him. I do. I mean, so when you look at it, I'll tell you real quick. My overall player wise, at my first top 50, I just don't think you're going to miss on this kid at all. He is my 5th overall player. So that tells you how much I believe in him and everything that he can do. So I'm a big fan of his. I think he's a tight end that we always used to joke in scouting that there's some tight ends that are very popular in the quarterback room, and there's some tight ends that are very popular in the running back room. He'd actually be popular with both groups. They would both enjoy having him on the team.
Yeah, superstar. All right, last question. 2 guys from Georgia. We saw basically the Eagles defense. Hey, we're just going to draft Georgia players, SEC guys, and they're going to be awesome. 2 guys from Georgia. Mykel Williams had a bunch of injuries, and then Jalen Walker are they both edge rushers? Who do you have your breakdown of who's better out of those two?
Yeah, it's a great conversation. You've got Williams, who's got the freaky size, length. He's going to test like a machine. Like he is so incredibly talented. And unfortunately, he got cut. He got cut block in the Clemson game, first week of the season, so he wasn't able to really practice much during the year. He was still gutting it out and playing, but you didn't see the best version of him. But you're going to see, a similar type. When we had Trayvon Walker, who went off at the combine, and all of a sudden he ends up being the number one pick. I'm not saying
Yeah.
it's going to be that level of helium, but this guy's he's gonna climb up as you go through because of those traits. And then Jalen Walker, he plays off the ball, he plays on the ball. They move him all over the place. He's a great football player. Now, I wish he was a little bit longer. But you're talking about explosive, instinctive, and like on him, I've heard like the leadership character stuff, like off the charts, like N'Kobe Dean level, type of a leader. So you can't go. I don't think you can go wrong with either one. A little different flavors, but two of the more dynamic players.
All right, Daniel Jeremiah, Move the Sticks, NFL Network. He's great. Find his podcast online. Daniel, thanks a lot. I'll see you. I don't know. Hopefully soon, man.
I will do it. We'll circle back as we get through free agency. You can just throw out everything that we talked about. None of it will matter, and then we'll do it all over again.
Yeah, certainly. All right, buddy.
Thanks, bud.